Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're just going to wait as everybody logs in and gets ready. We'll take a couple of minutes and then we'll kick off.
Are you in California, Phil?
I'm in North Idaho, about 100 miles from the Canadian border.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a lot of people think just being a technology and software company, we're located down there, but not the case.
Is that where Chief's headquarters are?
It is, yep.
Oh,
Yep, up
nice.
here, and we're in a town called Coeur d'Alene.
100 miles. That's heck. We'll just own you as a Canadian.
Pretty close.
And how long have you been with Chief?
I've been with Chief Architect for about 10 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah, after schooling, I knew I wanted to stay in the Pacific Northwest and landed with Chief Architect.
Oh, we have someone on the other side of the country in Prince Edward Island. So Idaho weather, is that kind of a mix between the Seattle rain and the Utah desert?
More the Seattle rain. If it rains in Seattle, usually it rains over here. We get a lot of snow during the winters too.
There you go. I learned something new today. I thought of Idaho as a desert state.
Yeah, kind of when you get towards the southern half of it, like Boise South, it becomes desert, but the northern half is certainly mountainous and lakes and the Great Rockies still.
Right. We are located, I don't know if you know where Toronto is, but we're located about an hour west of Toronto. It used to be about an hour and 45 minutes west, but now that they've finished the construction on our main highway, it's only an hour.
Okay, and is that more on the eastern side?
Central towards Eastern. But
Okay.
since there's a guy here from Eastern Canada, he might be offended by that. So it's more central. So we're kind of stuck between Detroit and Buffalo. If you think about
Okay,
where Detroit and Buffalo are, we're kind of in the middle of those on the planet that way.
got it.
All right, Char, it's 2:02. I know you're chatting away, but we'll get into it.
All right. All right. Awesome. Okay. Give me two shakes here, guys. I was chatting away as Rob said, guilty as charged because I'm in marketing. So I love talking to everybody and I will never stop talking to our customers because they actually have the most interesting stories in terms of what we do here at iGUIDE. So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. So excited to have this session. We actually created this session just based on your demand. Everybody's been asking about this. We did one probably a couple months back now, Rob.
Late fall.
Late fall. So we had our DWG files out, I'd say about a good 8 months then. You know, we've done a lot of work in developing them since then, just based on your feedback, ideas, how the industry works, and so on and so forth. So today we're taking another dive. I'm really excited. We have Rob Johnston. He's our iGUIDE, oh my goodness, guru here. And he knows everything inside out about iGUIDE, as well as your CAD drawings, your DWGs, your RVTs, and otherwise. He's really been driving the charge in terms of developing this for AEC Marketplace. We also have Phil. Phil is from Chief Architect, so amazing to have him with us today. They've been such a great partner for us to work with as we develop our solutions and we bring these forward for you guys. Anything that you would like to add to that, Rob, or Phil, for that matter, as we get started today?
Yeah, we're going to try and keep this very light and non-linear. So we'll see which directions this goes in. But I think it's kind of funny how we got to where we're sitting today with Phil here and me here, because it was the word of one of our customers, one of our mutual customers, that got us talking to each other. So it's interesting how things happen, where we had one of our longtime customers approach me and say, hey, I use Chief Architect on my remodeling side, so renovation remodeling side. So could you like figure out how I can do better at that and integrate the two? And that's one of the reasons we're sitting here today, is because of feedback like that from our clients and us wanting to do better and delivering solutions to them that way. So thanks everyone for joining us. And Phil, why don't you say hi and how we got connected?
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so as they mentioned, we have a mutual customer who connected us, and Rob initially reached out to Chief Architect and landed at my inbox. And for those who are unfamiliar with Chief Architect, we make 3D home design software that's used by really anyone that has a hand in the residential construction industry. So that'd be like builders or modelers, contractors, architects. And it's used for creating your floor plans, elevations, 3D renders, layouts, everything to sell the job to the client. And then at the end of the day, get it built. So thank you, Rob, for bringing us in with this webinar. And we're excited to discuss our integration together with your platform.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. Do you want to pull up? We have a little, we're going to start off with a slide deck today, guys, but that's just to get us sort of established in the realm of where we're going to be and give you guys an idea of what we're putting out together. Give me one sec here.
Okay, so we're having our first technical challenge. I know how to fix. Do you want me to fix it?
Yeah. Good
Okay.
job. Thanks. Sorry, guys. So essentially today we're going to walk through what both of the products are. So we're going to learn a little bit about iGUIDE, a little bit about Chief Architect, because I know that we have a varied audience in terms of the experiences. Yeah. Then we're going to dive into the solution. Is that?
Yeah, good.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. And then we'll talk about some of the benefits. So how can you talk to your clients or talk to your team, customers, partners, and otherwise about the benefits of using Chief Architect files and iGUIDE files to be able to build your business forward. So do you want to scooch us through?
Crisis averted. My pleasure. Yes. So you've already mentioned our what we're going to do. Yes. So Charlene and I are on the front end of this equation, getting back to the linear talk, which is all about getting to remodeling faster without compromising accuracy. Our camera system is used to quickly capture spaces and accurately provide documents that you can move into Chief Architect to get to your remodeling proposal. Everybody who in this space realizes the amount of work involved to go and capture the existing conditions, capture the idea of the customer, capture just the vision, but then also capture the technical side, which is the drawings and the math data involved to propose a renovation. So our product has been around for a long time, about 14 years now. And it's only been in the last few years that we've really pivoted one of our outputs to help support this market, which is the DWG file. Mm-hmm. We're now in our kind of approaching our third iteration of that. And a lot of that has been developed and tweaked and refined based on feedback from people like Phil, Chief Architect, and all of our customers of what they're trying to do with it. So we now go and capture properties with our Planix Pro camera. We capture it in, roughly 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the size of the residential property, and then produce a DWG output of that process so that you can then move that into Chief Architect. And Phil is going to kind of walk through that process at a high level or shallow dive, however you want to call it, to promote some dialogue within the users here. But that's our product in a nutshell. We're kind of at the bookends of the system, which is going onto the property, capturing the data really quickly. That's just subjective to the difficulty, but capturing it accurately, and then producing an output of that file or an output format that can be consumed in a variety of different ways. And there's lots of different terms like a DWG file, existing condition, as-built drawings, pre-construction, but it's all about just capturing that upfront work that about 80% of the market are still doing with tape measures, a laser pointing device, and their camera, and then going back and bringing all that information together in order to go into Chief. And maybe that's something that Phil wants to touch on about, where they've come from in terms of being able to create sketches, and that's been their core business for a long time. But now being able to receive CAD files just shortens the whole process for everybody.
Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second.
Yep.
Because Rob is incredibly smart. Sometimes he gets really detailed. for those of you that have never really been, I will say, experienced iGUIDE, at the outset, what our camera is it's our own proprietary camera system. So we've built it on our own proprietary LiDAR laser measurement system, and we couple it with a 360-degree Ricoh Theta camera. So the way that that works is the LiDAR laser actually goes, when you scan a room, captures every single measurement within that room. So the way that we generally explain it is that you can capture everything that you would do manually. We say 15 minutes for 3,000 square feet, Rob, 20 minutes, depending on how experienced you are with the system. So you can take that back. You have essentially like a real-time viewing of that entire property or that space. You can use our virtual measurement tools, and otherwise you can guide it through the space. You can share it virtually and otherwise. So that's where the flexibility kind of comes in. Where Rob likes to focus, and where also Phil is going to focus today, is really talking about what you do after you capture that system.
That's right.
So I just wanted to set the stage there in case anybody's kind of wondering what kind of magical solution this is that does all that manual work for you. It's actually really easy to use because it's point and click. But I'll hand it over to Phil.
Do you know, so I'll go off script.
Okay.
That comes up in conversations more than it should have. How long does it take? How long does it take? And is it half an hour, or is it an hour, or is it 20 minutes? It's always what's the size of the property,
Fair.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
And
That's a
then,
good point.
and then are they big open rooms, or is it full of cubicles? Right? So it's square,
right.
it's square footage
right.
and
Yeah.
level of detail. So whether you're in a house for 15 minutes or 30 or 35 is really just subjected to your skill level and the difficulty of geometry. Plus the type of renovation. If they're just going to do a kitchen, just shoot the
It's like a-
kitchen and you'll be in and out
Yeah,
in
Bob's your uncle.
in 5 minutes. So it's something that is really hard to capture during the communication. Say, well, what's it like to be on site to capture? It's very easy. Point and click sounds like such a marketing term, but it is. It's connect with your phone and tell it when you want to measure.
Mhm.
So it really is that easy. But yeah, so on-site is a very important aspect, and skill use. One of my favorite stories is with a company in Windsor, Ontario that hires co-op students to go do their shooting their properties for them.
Yeah.
And no longer,
Right, with tech, right?
right, or interns, co-op students, whatever you want to call them, because they can now use that resource rather than sending out their estimating crew, their senior estimators, or their renovation remodelers people, or the CEO of the renovation company to go do that work. Like it's
Mhm.
pretty easy nowadays. So yes.
I know. We get excited about the tech because it's pretty cool, right? So, okay, Phil, you're on.
All
Want to talk
right,
a little bit more about chief architect? Do you want to flip that down to Phil's slide though?
sure. So once you've gone out there in the field with the iGUIDE system and you've captured the as-built measurements, you need to do something with it, right? So
Mhm.
everyone might have a different purpose or reasoning for capturing the data. Some people might want to produce 3D renderings for the clients. Other people might need to produce more technical documents for contractors out in the field, or for the permitting department, or maybe to create materials lists. But the bottom line is chief architect can do it all once you've captured that data out in the field. So once you've captured your data in the field from the iGUIDE system, you're left off with the DWG. You can then bring that into chief architect and convert it into a 3D model. And that's your basis in chief architect of an as-built plan. From there, people are typically saving that as-built plan and calling it the remodeled version, and then from there proceeding to do their design or remodeled work. From here, you can overlay the two plans, the as-built plan and the remodeled plan, so that you can see exactly where those design changes will occur, and make notes for your documents and create the materials list and so forth. So up on my slide, you can see that Chief Architect has automated building and remodeling tools. So things like your roofs and framing and your foundations and so forth will come in automatically to make sure that you have a structure that is realistic to what is typical out there in the real world. If you're doing a kitchen or a bath or some other interior design project, there are tools for cabinetry and countertops and backsplashes and so forth to create interior spaces. And as you're creating your 2D model, your 3D model is being created automatically, and there's very little extra work you have to do to create photorealistic views to show it to your client. And then from there, you can show them what material options might look like, or maybe design options with structural changes might look like, so that the client can see exactly what they'd be receiving. And it also provides you with an opportunity to help upsell your jobs. And then once you've settled on a design with the client, from there, all the information for your CAD details, section views, elevations, materials lists, and whatnot is there and just ready to go. And you can put together the more technical information to get the thing bought and built. So that's kind of what you might think of as step 2. Once you've gotten your iGUIDE system and measurements down from step 1, you can bring it in a chief architect and continue the design process for whatever your end purpose is.
So Phil, just off script, can you produce new drawings from a proposed renovation right out of Chief?
You can, yeah. So you can bring in the kind of the existing plan as it exists in the field today. And then from there, proceed to design the remodel to get the new drawings, new elevations, everything you would need to get the new plan built.
Because that's kind of what you need for building permits, right? You have to show the existing condition of the property, but then you also have to show your proposed change to the property.
Correct, yeah. And being able to overlay the two in both the 2D and the 3D view makes it very easy to understand exactly where those changes are going to occur and the scope of what those changes might be. And you can see things like where walls might need to be demoed, where the kitchen might need to be reoriented, what's going to happen with your roof lines from the old to the new. It just makes it very simple for all parties to be on the same page and have good communication.
Is coming back.
Mhm.
Why don't we
Are you guys still there?
Yep.
Oh, there he
Oh,
is.
there we
Yeah.
are. Sorry, I didn't realize we had we lost a connection there. It sounds like.
Yeah, you froze just for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know how much of you guys caught there, but kind of the bottom line is the ability to overlay in both 2D and 3D makes it very easy for all parties to make sure they're properly informed of the scope of the changes that are going to be occurring and make sure that everyone has a clear path forward.
Okay, so a couple questions have come in or comments have come in from the chat that I'll address, and then maybe we can take a deeper dive. One question that came in was, will I be able to use my older iGUIDE camera? So if you have an IMS 5
Mhm.
that still has a LiDAR, that has a LiDAR on it, that has a camera on it, for sure you can use it. You can submit your iGUIDE and just request a DWG file, and then be able to take that DWG into Chief Architect. So that's a no-brainer.
Mhm.
There was another comment in the chat about taking 1 to 2 hours. And I think we often maybe overstate the speed at which you can go through a property. Like you can go through in 20 to 30 minutes. In the remodeling renovation space, you may take longer. It just depends on what you want to capture in that space. There's no limit. There's no upper limit. It's just your preference. So don't ever think if you're taking longer that that's a negative. You're just making sure you're capturing the shots to do what you need to do, whether it be in measurement mode number 3, measuring, to weird layouts of a property, just so that you have all the data captured. So I think that's more than, there's lots of times I'm on site for more than 30 minutes. Lots of times that I'm on. There was a comment just about, are we going to show the process? Yes, we are. We're going to go show you some of the output samples from us. And then Phil's going to take a shallow dive on importing it and what has to be done to it. So yeah, please stay tuned. I know we're just bantering and talking about the
Okay.
process up front.
All right. So we're going to dive into the meat of this, if you will.
Okay.
Okay. So I just wanted to share, if we go into the next slide, I think we're going to talk about some of the challenges that you've heard about, Rob.
Yep.
Do you want to skim us on down?
Is that one?
Down. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's quickly talk about challenges. The challenge that a lot of people have is the wasted time manually measuring.
It's the worst.
And then
Forget it.
what's even worse, really bad that nobody talks about, is reassembling all that into a property to draft.
Who
So
wants to do it?
if it's a simple property, people can get away with it. It's just but the more that property gets more difficult or larger, the time involved on that back end eventually harder. The other thing you have is trusting your team and the human error part of it, of did they read the measuring tape right? Did they have the laser device on an angle? And I know I'm nitpicking possible errors there. Did they hold it up against the wall? You don't know because you weren't there. And if you've got a good experienced guide, those problems don't exist. But stacking up all those measurements over the course of a building has inherent error in it. And I don't think it's anywhere near the level that we, a LiDAR-based system would contribute in that space. There's lots of times, I heard a horror story yesterday of people just forgetting measurements on site, forgetting to do a room, forgetting to do something, and having to go back. And that seems to be a more common thing than anybody would ever admit.
Wow.
I heard of someone having to get on a
No.
plane yesterday. And again, having to go back on site, that if it's your neighbor, who cares? But if it's a guy 3 hours away, it all adds up.
Gets painful. Yeah.
And then the challenges, of course, is once you've sketched up that, even if whatever product you've used to generate a 2D drawing, is you typically, or you may need to hand that off to an architect, and just communicating that front end, that visualization piece of, oh, here's my drawing in 500 pictures, good luck. And that happens.
worst.
We hear stories from architects that is a regular part of their business. And obviously with the 3D camera, or sorry, the 360 camera fused with the LiDAR, we don't have those problems, that you can see exactly what's going on in the space. And if there's something misrepresented in a DWG, which does happen because of the complexity of buildings, you can always go and say, oh, well, what was in that room? What was in that space? And accommodate without having to find out what pictures then.
Okay. We
Okay.
have one comment. Can someone comment? Because I have a comment in the chat that there's nothing showing up on the screen. Can you guys see our screen okay, or is it black?
Bill, can you confirm you can see my screen?
I can see it on my end. Yeah, it looks like
Okay.
a couple comments came in saying they can see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
So those are the challenge.
good.
Those are the challenges on the front end that the iGUIDE addresses. And I'll just I'll kind of speed it up a little bit. I'm just going to show you a sample drawing from our output now, where is kind of the starting point for Phil. So
Okay.
again, this is kind of a sample output from our iGUIDE system. This is what's called an AutoCAD DWG file. This is a premium file, and this is obviously at scale, dimensioned with labels, with ceiling heights. Everything's organized on AIA layers. And what's brand new to us as of January this year is when you scan a multi-floor property, that all of the layers are aligned. They're not floating islands that you have to put together. We actually use software tools that we have. So even though we're giving you individual slices or individual layers of the property, you know, basement, main floor, upper floor, that they're all, if you actually bring them into Chief or a CAD product, that when you put them on top of each other, they're all aligned by common walls, load-bearing walls, or exteriors, depending on what you're trying to do. So this is kind of our output that is kind of the consuming engine on the Phil side. So Phil, I'm going to stop sharing, and maybe you can start from this input.
Can I
Yeah, let
Yep.
me.
Sorry.
Charlene pressed pause.
Sorry, no. Only because I'm new to this, like full ownership. I'm in marketing, guys. This is why I work with people like Rob, that are much smarter than me at DWGs. But for those folks that are maybe newer to iGUIDE or newer to DWGs, can you just walk me through, like, tell me what are the key highlights of this DWG? So if I was to look at this and I'm going to explain it to an architect and say, hey, you know, Mary Smith architect, this is what's really great about this DWG, and this is why I trust it. So if you were to give me like 3 points, Rob, I don't want to go too deep into it, because I think that also plays really well into why this works well with Phil's solution, because it gives that information, if I understand correctly.
Yep. So I'd say that the number one thing is that it's drafted against the LiDAR data. So it's not people taking or creating a wall based on two measurements. It's creating a wall based on thousands of measurements. So,
Okay, cool.
so it's, we're fusing the laser data that came off of our system, and we're creating the geometry, whether that be walls, windows, doors, patios, whatever it is. We're using the LiDAR data to capture it and draw to that, or draft
Okay.
to that.
And tell me, how accurate is LiDAR then? So if you're gonna tell me this is perfect, it's great, you can trust it, Mary Smith architect, how accurate is it?
I'm going to say across the property or room, that's a really difficult question, because it depends on the property, depends on how you shoot, but we say 1/4 of an inch.
Okay.
So to the LiDAR, right? Okay.
That's good. And when you say, sorry, I asked so many questions,
Yep.
but because I know people ask when you're thinking about it, how I shoot, are you talking about how many times I use? Because we see there's a difference in opinion here where we talk about it could take you 3 hours, it could take you 30 minutes. That's just how many times I would scan using my camera. Is that what you mean?
I call, yes, how many green dots you put on the floor, how many times you shoot a room, how many times do you shoot in the threshold? Do you open up the
There you
closet?
go. Yeah.
Do you open up the
Cool things.
closet? Do you open up a door to help with the alignment and the transition from room to room? Are you taking one shot in a big room or 4? So
Right.
all those little things
Right.
add up to making the property well drafted.
So just because I know, like, I think this is helpful for some of our viewers, but so just for reference point, I'm asking the question and from a new standpoint, always preface it with that. If I'm shooting, and Phil too, you can weigh in on this as well. I'd love to hear your opinion. So I'm shooting a commercial space. I maybe only need to go in there, shoot 5 points because it's open, right? Maybe it's got beams. I'm just trying to figure it out. And it's maybe, 3,000 square foot, flat, easy open space. We've done that before together. And then if I'm using a house, and I'm doing something that's got a little more walls, things like that, then
You're going to always balance the level of geometry. You're going to balance the level of geometry with the space size.
thank you.
5 is
appreciate
too
that.
small for that big, but
I'm
but
new.
you might
Okay to call
you might
that.
get away with 8 to 10, but
Okay,
it just depends how many beams. Do you need the accurate drawing of the beams?
thank you.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
So how we construct the geometry is definitely an attributing factor. How we organize all the geometry on layers, which is really important, that Phil will consume on his end. But
Okay.
any architect that's in North America familiar with the architectural standards that we draft everything, put them on that layers that way.
Mhm.
And then I think just the room labeling, as simple and silly as it is, when you're looking at a property externally and you weren't the one that actually went on site and
Ooh,
saw the
good point.
property,
Good point.
the room labeling, as silly and basic as it is, just helps you get up to speed with the property that much faster.
Okay. I have a good question from Bruce. He says, can you get measurements of the smaller dimensions of the room? I found that square footage is calculated from the largest measurement of the rooms, i.e. doorway entrance of the room. So he's looking for probably like, talk to me about if I want to see counter height, if I want to see
So
doorways and those details, calculating the measurements and bringing those together.
So again, we're drafting a 2D floor plan of what the LiDAR captured.
Yeah.
Right? If there are other pieces of the room that you need dimensions for, you're going to use our measuring tools within the iGUIDE, within the measure mode 1, measure mode 2, measure mode 3, to maybe get those extra pieces of dimension. But we're only drafting at the LiDAR that you've measured.
Right.
Right.
But you do have the ability to find
Sure.
those measurements
Absolutely.
using the iGUIDE
Absolutely
tools,
you
right?
do. Absolutely you do.
Good answer.
So real quick, the quality of the geometry, the layering, and the labels are what really sets it apart.
Okay. All right. Phil, you ready
So-
to take this show away?
So I'm going to stop
Sure
sharing,
am.
Phil, and this is a great place for me to jump off the diving, or you to jump off the dive board.
Yeah, I'm
Perfect.
excited.
Yeah,
I
let
really
me-
don't know much about Chief Architect, and Phil's an expert. So he's going to show us all the tips and tricks. I'm going to take a moment while Phil's getting prepped and a look at some of the questions here. Alyssa Hoffman, she has a good question. So she's a 20-year plus Chief Architect user and about 1 month in iGUIDE. Should she use iGUIDE on the inside or outside of a building? Can I have iGUIDE create a 3D file for Cheer and import the Revit 3D file into Chief? So Revit So a couple questions in there, using iGUIDE inside and outside, and then also importing a 3D file into Chief.
So you can use it inside and outside.
Yeah.
You have to set your expectations of what we're going to draft outside because we're an inside measuring company, but we will draft external objects. That requires a much longer explanation than we'll answer today, but you can do both.
Okay.
And I will, and yes, we can draft Revit files, but I believe the best input to set up renovating spaces in Chief, Phil will answer this, is to go with the 2D DWG format.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Great questions.
right.
Coming in. Go, Phil.
Perfect.
before
Well,
we
I will
interrupt you
take it
again.
away. And just before I get going, can you guys see my screen? All right.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So as we've kind of been alluding to, once you've gone through the iGUIDE capture system, you'll be produced with a DWG file that looks something like this. And then from here, you can bring it into Chief Architect, convert it to your as-built file, and then create that copy of the as-built file, call it the remodeled version, do your remodel work, and then you can overlay the two to show exactly where those changes will be occurring. So let me pop open Chief Architect real quick. All right, so here I am in Chief Architect, and I'm just going to bring in a CAD file that Rob sent me. So I just have that CAD file right here on my computer, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into the screen. And when I do that, it's going to open up a wizard that is going to ask us some questions about how we want that file to import. So on the first menu of the wizard, it's going to ask you some questions about some miscellaneous finite settings. I'll just go ahead and click on the next screen. If your CAD file is a topo survey file that you've obtained, you can convert that into a Chief Architect file. We're not covering that in this webinar, but it's something that you can do. This menu is asking, what do you want to do about the layers with those from the DWG file? And we want to bring those layers in as we had left them off in the from the iGUIDE system. This question is, what do you want to do about your unit of measurements? I'm going to leave them in inches and then click on OK. And then we'll click on Finish and see what we get. So once I have done that import, we have that CAD file exactly as it was left off in and captured within the iGUIDE system. Chief Architect is a layer-based program, and over on the right-hand side of the screen, I have my various layers, and these layers towards the top are some of those layers that came in through the iGUIDE system. Now, when you do the CAD to wall conversion to convert it into a 3D model, the only thing that Chief Architect will convert into 3D is the structure of your plan. So your walls, doors, and windows. Things like your cabinets and your fridge and whatnot, those don't come over during that conversion, but it's something that can be manually added later if you need to see them in the as-built conditions. So when we do the CAD to walls conversion, the first step is to recognize what layers all of the individual objects are on. And so we need to recognize the layers for the walls, doors, and windows. So over on the right-hand side of the screen, I have this menu open called the Active Layer Display Options. And if I come over to our CAD file and I click on one of these lines that represent the wall, we can see that it is on the layer A-wall. So at this point, we're just making a mental note of that, and we'll proceed to recognize what the layers for the doors and windows are. So next, let's do the doors. So I'm going to click on one of the doors in the plan, and you can see that it's on a layer called A-door. And one of the things I'm observing about this layer is that the individual lines that make up this entire door are blocked together in a CAD block. When you do the CAD to walls conversion, you need to have access to the individual lines that make up the walls, doors, and windows. So at this point, I'm just making a mental note to myself that, okay, I'm going to need to take these CAD blocks and explode them into the individual CAD lines. And I'll do that here in a second. So the doors are on the A-door layer. And then if we come down to one of these windows, it is on a layer A-glaze. And I can also recognize that it is on a CAD block. All right, so we've made 3 mental notes of the layers and then another mental note about the blocks. So next, let's address the blocks and explode them into the individual CAD lines. So I am currently in what's called a layer set in Chief Architect. And this layer set is my working layer set. And layer sets allow you to quickly switch between various views where some layers may be turned on, some layers may be turned off, and how these layers are displayed will also vary between your various layer sets. So I'm currently in that working layer set, but I'm just going to temporarily go to this layer set that says all layers off. And right now, all of my layers are turned off and we do not see anything on our screen. Next, we're going to turn on the layers for the CAD lines representing the doors and then the CAD lines representing the windows. So that is all that we see in the plan, and then we'll explode them into their individual CAD lines. So to do that, I'm just going to left click with my mouse and draw a marquee over the doors and windows. I've got them all selected. And then in the bottom toolbar, there is a button that says explode CAD block. And when I click on that, it's going to explode them into the individual lines and they're no longer going to be CAD blocks. So that's all the work we're going to do with exploding them. And the next thing I'm going to do is turn off those layers for the doors and windows. I like to keep my layer sets kind of clean as I need them. With all layers off, I'll turn all those layers off and then come back to the working layer set. So we've now obtained some information that we need to do the conversion to a 3D model. And that feature that does that conversion is called the CAD to walls feature. And that's available by going up to the CAD menu and then going down to CAD to walls. And this menu is going to ask you to tell the program what layers from this CAD file are going to be the layers that you want to represent for the walls, windows, and doors. So from this drop down, I'll say that the wall layer is going to be that A wall layer. The window layer is going to be that A glaze layer. And then that door layer is going to be the layer A door. So making our way down the menu, you could do railings if you wanted to. We're going to skip over it. Down below it, there's an option to set wall types. So wall type 1, I have set up to be a wall type called siding 6 plank. It's made up of a sheet of drywall, a 2x6, OSB, and then a plank siding material. And then wall type 2 is a wall type called interior 4. It's a 1/2 inch of drywall, your 2x4, which would be 3.5 inches wide, and then another 1/2 sheet of drywall. So the total thickness of this wall type is going to be 4.5 inches. Now, when we do the CAD to wall conversion, what the program...
Phil, let's pause for a second.
Oh,
Just a
okay.
quick pause, Phil. I just have a question from Ivan. He was wondering, you want to know if the system determines the interior and exterior wall thickness. Just because we're talking about walls, I thought this was a good moment to just step into this, and I don't want to leave him hanging. And then his previous experience with Chief's CAD to walls, it often gets tens of wall type thicknesses based on variations.
Okay. So the way the wall thicknesses work is what the program does is, let's pick on these red lines representing the interior walls.
Okay.
What the program is going to do is these lines are on that layer A dash wall, and the program is going to measure the distance between those two lines. Now, it's going to measure that distance, and if whatever that measurement is within 1 inch of the thickness of either of these wall types, it's going to try to use one of these wall types. So in this example with the interior 4 wall, if that wall type is within a 3.5 to 5.5 inch variance, it's going to use that interior 4 wall type and place it there. So from here we can just click on OK, and then the program should produce our CAD to walls. And let's take a 3D view and see what we have. So up at the top, there's different 3D camera tools. One of them says perspective floor overview. And then we will be in our 3D view.
So
That's cool.
I was just going to take a step back and mention something that Ivan asked, that the thickness of those walls are determined usually by when you're capturing a property, it asks you when you're on that floor, what is the exterior wall thickness?
Okay.
So it's actually, they typically key in a value saying, hey, this is a 4.5-inch wall, or this is a 6.5-inch
Mm,
wall.
okay,
And they key that in, and then our drafting team knows what to draft it to.
got it.
Especially if you've only captured the inside of the house,
Good.
it goes back to, well, how thick do you want me to draw the wall?
So then
Yep.
So
that
Yeah.
does come easier.
Yeah,
so
good, good point. So in Chief Architect, this may be a little bit of a deeper dive, but there's this concept of wall types where you're kind of building out how those wall types are constructed in regards to drywall, stud, OSB, and so forth. And so you're essentially setting the wall thickness through those wall types. And so with this iGUIDE system, if you're setting the wall thickness, you want to make sure that your wall thickness in Chief Architect matches with your guys' thicknesses.
yeah, because I'm gonna say when we were on our DWG 1.0 level for about 8 months last year, we were still drawing wall types that weren't uniform. So where Ivan may have experienced them having different wall thicknesses as it came into Chief, now when we launched to 1.2 to the North American drawing standards, they're all 4.5 or 6.5. And
Okay.
that's how we're going to correct for it on our side, or draft it on our side, unless there's notable exceptions. And
Yep.
we'll leave it at that, because there are
There's always-
lots of notable
It's
exceptions.
architecture, right?
right?
There's always different things.
But by going to the default standard wall thickness, North American wall thicknesses, at least it makes it uniform to our standards. And that way it's a lot easier for like Chief Architect to consume and immediately get to that point pretty quickly.
Cool. That's cool.
Yep. Yeah,
Good
absolutely. So
question.
yeah, you just need to make sure that the settings that you have in the iGUIDE for the wall thickness match what you're telling Chief Architect those wall thicknesses are going to be.
Yep.
Yeah,
Very cool.
good point there. And thanks for the question, Ivan. So once you have something like this, a couple things happen. I kind of hit on it, but Chief Architect has a lot of automated features to kind of jumpstart the design process. You can see that I had a foundation automatically come in underneath these walls. Framing gets automatically built within those walls. And if you have roofs, I didn't have my roofs turned on in the other view, but those will get built as well. So from here, we're in the as-built version of our plan. But if you need to make a model to show the client 3D renderings or get your construction documents produced, the first thing you want to do before you make any changes is create a copy of the file and call it the remodel. So to do that, you would just go to File, Save As, give it a name. You can see that my file name has changed, and then from here you can do whatever the design changes entails. So
Before you do
simple.
that, Phil,
Oh,
before
yeah.
you do that, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of our customers that actually will measure the basement and
Okay.
will capture like the foundation. And sometimes it's bare concrete, sometimes it's studded, sometimes it's drywalled, sometimes it's the big white insulation. But if we drafted that and then moved it over as its own basement layer, could we assign that, like import it as a drawing and then assign it as a foundation and use that?
Yeah, good question. So what you would want to do in that scenario, in my opinion, it would be easiest to get just a second CAD file for the basement. So you have two CAD files, one for the first floor, one from the basement. And when you're working in Chief Architect, up at the top, there are different floor indicators telling you what floor you're on. But you can create a basement, or actually I can go down to my floor 0. And right now I have that foundation there. But when you initially start working on your foundation or your basement, you can have it just be a blank canvas. And then you can import that CAD file of the basement and then do that exact same CAD to walls conversion to get it to get the basement in place.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Same thing with the second floor. You would just go up to, well, I don't have a second floor yet, but if you did have a second floor, you would just do the exact same thing.
Okay.
Cool.
And because we're exporting them as aligned, I assume that means they would be aligned when they come in and would automatically stick the foundation underneath the main floor.
It should, yeah. So it should go to kind of the drawing origin coordinates when you do that initial import.
Okay. Great, thanks for that. I know it was a deviation, but let's
Yeah.
show some remodeling.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Interesting.
So yeah, let's say in our hypothetical scenario, we have a small kitchen right here, a small dining room, and we wanted to do an addition to make space to expand the kitchen and the dining room. So we're in the remodeled plan, which is the appropriate plan to be doing the work in. So for example, let's say we wanted to move this wall out. So we have more space over here. Maybe as part of the changes, we're then going to put in sliding doors over here. And then let's say we were going to add some windows over here.
Oh, that's fun.
There's cabinetry design tools. You can add cabinets and create your kitchen as you need to. And then at the end of the day, you will have kind of a fully fleshed out remodeled plan. I have a second copy of this file where I've already gone through and made a fully fleshed out remodeled plan. So I'm going to close out of this one for the time being and open the other one that I have. All
Any
right, so
questions, folks, as we're going through this? I've kind of asked in the chat, but any active questions, like even to details that may not relate directly to what we're talking about today that may help the audience, please don't be shy. Pop them in the chat or pop them in the Q&A, whichever you're comfortable with.
I have a question.
Rob always has questions.
So Phil, can you go to the 3D version of this? So
Yeah,
I always hear clients ask or make a statement. It's not ask, make a statement of, I need to get to the rendered version of the proposed renovation or proposed remodel as not quickly, but efficiently make it look nice. So how does that appear, or what would they do in Chief?
Yeah, so 3D rendering is automatic in Chief. You don't really need to do any extra work to create a 3D view such as this one. There's different what we call rendering techniques that show or hide different levels of detail. For example, let's say you made this initial design of the kitchen and you wanted the client to give you feedback about the free-form geometry of the kitchen, but you don't want them to get boggled down by this backsplash material or maybe the countertop material and so on and so forth. So I'm in a rendering technique right now called the standard rendering technique. And if we wanted to hide this level of detail about the specific tile or countertop selections, we could switch to one of these other rendering techniques, such as, let's jump to this one called hand-drawn lines. Right, so this one removes some of the color from our design. Instead, we're seeing a black and white version of the model. So it's an easy way to minimize the distractions the client might see and keep them focused on the task at hand. So there's not a lot of extra work you need to do to create views like this. It can kind of help gear your sales pitch with the client kind of in the direction that you need it to go.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, this is the 3D version of the model. You can work in both 2D and 3D at the same time, have these pulled up side by side as you need to. So I'm in this floor plan view and you can see the kitchen that I have. Up at the top of the screen, there is this drop down to switch between different views that you might create for like an electrical plan versus a framing plan and so forth. I have a view set up called floor plan view shell, and you might think of it as kind of a project summary. So here you can see that I've added dimensions going to center lines of the windows and doors that we're adding. I have some call outs with notes explaining what's going on. There's a polyline that is telling us how big the addition that we're doing is. And it's very easy from a floor plan view to recognize what the deal is. And this might be something that you would share with a contractor or your permitting department. Now, you can overlay this with that as-built plan, so it's very easy to recognize where the before and after is. I've got a completed version of that as-built plan set up, and I'm just going to toggle that on with the F9 key on my keyboard. So there you can see that this is previously where that wall was in our as-built plan. We did some changes to the windows, and you can see where those are. You can see how in the as-built plan, the island was oriented different, and we turned it 90 degrees and made it bigger. So this is fine and dandy for a floor plan view, but it might be a little bit difficult for a client to visualize how the two changes look one on top of another. That referencing also works in the 3D view. So if I jump back to this 3D view and I press that F9 key again, it'll turn on that reference. And now it's very easy to see, hey, this is where this wall previously stopped before. If we bump this out about 12 feet, you'll have room for a larger island, and then you can have a nice sized dining room as well. And hey, this is where your island was before. We can turn that 90 degrees and have a much larger cooking area in this space.
Okay.
So would you say and I know the answer is going to be it varies and it's a mixed bag, but I maybe articulate on it a bit, but would you say a lot of your customers just focus on the changes to walls, windows, and doors, or do they go to the full extent of the remodeling, like putting in a new kitchen, new cabinets, and what have you?
I would say most of them go as far as the project entails. You know, if you're doing something like, let's say a sunroom or maybe a new deck or something, you probably don't need a model all the way out to showing cabinetry and furniture and stuff like that. It's something you can add kind of as a quote unquote bonus to show them, but give them better ideas for what the depth of space might be and what sort of furniture will fit in there and things like that. But you kind of need to listen to what the client's end goal is with the project, and then add that level of detail to the project. If the client says, hey, I need a new kitchen, you're probably going to go as far as adding all the cabinets and appliances like I've done here, so that they can get a better idea for how their new cooking and cleaning area is going to come together.
Right. So now I have a question that takes us all the way back to the beginning.
Me too. So take us there.
Is there any way you could go back to the way you originally brought in the DWG file?
Yeah, I should be able to. Let me pull up the as-built plan. So I've got the remodeled plan open right now. Let me pull up the as-built plan.
As you're pulling that up, Phil, we're having a bit of a chat, and I want to hear more information because I know I'm very conscious of time. We're under 10 minutes now, and I want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered. But we're talking about electrical components and the HVAC. So in terms of capturing the HVAC and the electrical and all of those, we'll call them necessary, but maybe not so sexy details of a home. Like how does that apply with the iGUIDE system? Like, how can you do that effectively, Rob? I think that's one of the things that's kind of trending in our chat here. Want to
At the current time, we don't model in MEP components or mechanical, electrical, or plumbing. So outside of water heaters and furnaces, we don't do that. I'm going to say we don't do it today. And there's a lot of reasons for that, in that we come from a floor plan company, not a 3D layout or mechanical design drafting company. It's not to say that there aren't things in place to start adding those, but today as a deliverable, we don't do that.
Okay. But
yeah,
we do have tags.
Sure. So tags
you can take photos. So say I mean,
yep.
Obviously coming at it from a new perspective, right?
Yep.
Where I'm not as seasoned as you are, and obviously have a different view of how things work, but we have a system where you can actually take photos or you can capture video and otherwise, so that you can integrate that into your iGUIDE and use that for contractor purposes and
sure.
stuff like that,
and
right? If you were looking to document some of those details.
That's the way a lot of people are doing it today. It still doesn't end up on the drawings,
right?
But it ends up in the 3D tour.
Okay.
So if you want to tag assets or take measurements to those assets or measure the length of a pipe or measure an outlet, yes, all of that data is internally contained within the iGUIDE.
Yeah.
But today they are not ending up on drawings.
Okay. Nope, okay. That's fair. That's good. Thank you.
So Phil, here's my question. Because I understand this is the other way to do this. If you imported it, you can also import a PDF drawing of this layout as well, right?
Correct. Yep. You can import a PDF.
So if you import a PDF and you can scale it, you're essentially going to draft or redraw on top of it.
Correct. Yep. So you can import a PDF, rescale it. So it's not the same one-to-one measurements as Chief Architect. And then from there, you would just go over to the wall tools and draw over where those walls are on the PDF. I don't have my walls turned on. Here I can do that. And then kind of same thing with the doors and windows, go over to the door tools and just drop them over where those doors are in the PDF, and so on and so forth until you've recreated it as a 3D model.
Right. So you can import a PDF regardless of where the PDF comes from, and then retrace over it to get the same geometry, right?
Correct. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And I think where I'm going with that is why do that if you can just import the DWG and go straight into it?
More of a personal preference, I guess. So if you have a DWG versus a PDF file, if your DWG is in a clean format like the iGUIDE system produces, very easy, very fast to convert it to the 3D model. I've seen a lot of DWG files that aren't so clean, and maybe the layers aren't clearly organized. Maybe you don't have lines connecting properly in corners and whatnot. That can be a bit of a challenge to do the conversion. And at that point, it might be easier just to trace over it. The good thing about the iGUIDE system is the files that I've seen from you guys are very clean and they're very easy to work with and do that CAD to walls conversion.
Cool. Thank you. I just hear that a lot, that people just say, I'll just take the D or the PDF output and resketch it. Right. And I think some people might want to go through at that level of granularity to build it up on their own.
Yeah, and something I've observed from watching people do that over the years, one of the benefits of tracing over it is it makes you a little bit conscious of all the nooks and crannies of the model. If you do that CAD to wall conversion, you might not be aware of some of the details of it, even though they're there. But whereas if you're going and manually tracing over the walls and placing doors and windows, you're very conscious of what's going on in every corner of the plan. So I would say there's not a right or wrong way to do it. If your DWG file is in a very clean format, it's easier to recognize what's what. It's going to be the fastest way to convert it to a 3D chief architect model.
Right. And I think that's when the other element of our output that we haven't really even talked about comes into play, which is when you've got the 3D walkthrough of the facility and you can stand in the room and say, what was going on with that shelving? You can actually, without having to sort through pictures or mentally figure that out, it's easy for someone to evaluate that, even if they've never been to the property.
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes it very easy for all trades really to be on the same page. Another thing with the output too that you can do in Chief Architect, I've been showing 3D renders in our floor plan directly from within the software, but you can export renders as an image. You can record video walkthroughs going through the 3D model. We have an interactive mobile app where you can send a 3D model to somebody in a view only mode, and they can navigate through it on an iPad or in their web browser. So there's all sorts of communication tools to make sure the client and all the other parties involved are on the same page.
I love this. I'm excited. I honestly, Phil, until today, I didn't really know how chief architects worked. And I will say that because I was too afraid to jump into it. But now I feel like I have a little bit of a handle on maybe some of the things it can do. I just want to follow up. We have a few questions,
Sure.
some that I can answer, some that I'm going to get you guys to answer. So for any existing operators that have joined us, we've got the question in our chat here just about the software being available. So as an iGUIDE operator, you have the DWG add-on that's available to you. You can just select it when you choose to order your iGUIDE, and it's available for any new and or pre-existing iGUIDE. So if you needed it for an iGUIDE that you shot, maybe you have a client that's doing a renovation on a home, like 6 months prior bought that home. And now they're saying, well, we want to do a renovation. Is there any chance you can give us the iGUIDE? Could you give us something? You can go back to them and say, actually, I can give you a DWG of that space and you'll be able to use that. So that's a nice way to kind of build that relationship and or upsell your client just slightly when we talk about how to market yourself. And then as well, there's no subscription for that. So it's a pay per project use. So you pay per the square feet. All those details are available on the website, but I can include a link in our follow-up emails so that you can find those really easily. We are recording this. A couple of people have asked, and I'm going to share that out probably tomorrow with any additional details that you'd like to see. I'm going back through because I just want to make sure I answer all the questions, so I apologize. Structural information was asked. So Rob, I think this is a question for you, maybe for you as well, Phil, about floor joist size, ceiling joist size, ceiling heights, electrical locations. I think electrical locations is going to be covered if you were to do tagging and you were to, so essentially when you do tagging, and I can include this in the follow-up as well, a quick little video to show you how to do that. But, and also second to that, elevations. So elevations with iGUIDE. I know, I'm packed it in.
I don't have it. That's a longer than a minute answer.
You can do it.
Just say,
Good fate.
coming soon on elevations. In fact, coming May 17th on elevations. Structural components like joists and beams. Joists probably not for the short term now. That may find its way into our Revit models in the future. But typically structural components need to be extremely accurate, located beyond the capabilities of our equipment. Like
Okay.
they need to be
'Cause it's just
often
next level.
and sub-millimeter at
Okay.
times. So we typically don't have the sensor to do that. So we don't do
Okay.
that.
So we basically get you about 80% of the way there.
Yep.
When we talk about some of these opportunities and pieces,
Yep.
it's 80% of the way there. Because when you talk about that next level that you're talking about the millimeters and otherwise, that's a little bit more finite than what you could expect a LiDAR system to be able to do for you, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think we're at time. I've got a number of questions and otherwise for resources in our chat today. I'm going to include that all in an email, and y'all will get the follow-up email tomorrow with the recording. I'll include some other goodies that I think might be helpful. If you have any questions, Rob is always here and available to chat. He's always great to have a conversation with. And of course, Phil is here as well from the chief architect side. We're always happy to make the connection, and I'm sure Phil, he's got his contact information there as well if you want to reach out to him directly. Alyssa, I know you had questions about building 3D models in Chief Architect. I'm going to share your information and your question with Phil because I think he's better experienced to answer that for you.
Yeah, Alyssa, you might just send me a note directly and I can answer it offline.
And I'm sure he can get you set on the right path there because I know you've asked it a couple of times and it's probably just my interpretation that I'm misunderstanding what exactly you need. So thanks so much, guys, for everybody joining us today. This is an awesome conversation. I feel like we could probably keep chatting about this. This is really interesting stuff. But thanks, Phil, for joining us today. It's amazing to have you. We're so proud and happy to partner with Chief Architect. You're such an amazing resource. You always bring so much value to the table. Rob, obviously our guru here. As I said, he's available. Thanks so much for joining and taking the time today, Rob.
My pleasure.
Any additional questions, folks, please, you can hit reply on the email that I sent tomorrow, or you can reach out to us individually. We're always happy to help.
Thank you, Phil. That was fantastic as usual.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And thank you everyone for your time today and for attending.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.